Let us discuss the role of diffusion and osmosis in living organisms. So this simply means, how is diffusion and osmosis important to living organisms such as plants and animals? So let us start with diffusion and then move on to osmosis. Number one is that it allows the roots of plants to absorb mineral salts from the surrounding soil. So this is possible when the mineral salts are at a higher concentration in the soil than in the sap vacuoles of root hair cells. Okay, let me explain. Remember, we are talking about movement of molecules from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration. So the mineral salts have to be at a higher concentration in the surrounding soil than in the root hair cells. When that happens, then diffusion naturally takes place. Now, I want to say this. When it comes to expressing your answer, now this is a common question whereby you are asked, state how diffusion is important to living organisms. So a lot of students will tend to phrase their answer as allows absorption of water and mineral salts from the soil. Immediately you add the term water, your answer becomes wrong. Because when we talk about water, it's only ever done through osmosis and no other process. So absorption of mineral salts from the soil. Point number two is that it facilitates gaseous exchange in both plants and animals. So when we talk about gaseous exchange, this is the process whereby respiratory gases pass across respiratory surfaces. Let's break that down. What are the respiratory gases? This refers to oxygen and carbon dioxide. Respiratory surfaces are the specific parts of an organism where gaseous exchange takes place. So the specific surfaces where oxygen and carbon dioxide diffuse are referred to as the respiratory surfaces. In mammals, our respiratory surfaces are the alveoli. In plants, you have the stomata. So this process is possible as a result of diffusion. You're going to have the gases diffusing from the region of higher concentration to the region of lower concentration. Moving on, diffusion also facilitates the removal of nitrogenous waste in unicellular organisms. Unicellular organisms are organisms that only consist of one cell in their body. A very good example is the amoeba. So when we talk about nitrogenous waste, these are simply waste products that contain nitrogen. We have ammonia, we also have urea. Now, for example, in mammals, our urine contains urea. So in the case of unicellular organisms, they can get rid of their waste products simply by diffusion. So the waste products are at a higher concentration within the cell than in the surrounding. So what happens next? They simply diffuse out of the cell and into the surrounding. Now, another important role of diffusion is that it's involved in transport of manufactured food substances from the leaves to the rest of the plant. Now, when it comes to a plant, it's actually in the leaves where food substances are manufactured through the process of photosynthesis. But once this food has been manufactured, it needs to be transported to the rest of the plant. So this is where the phloem comes in. You have a specialized tissue within plants whose main function is simply transportation of food substances, but it does so through diffusion. So the food substances diffuse from one region to another based on the concentration gradient. So they diffuse from the region of higher concentration to the region of lower concentration until they have been transported to all the areas of the plant. Now, our last role of diffusion is that it's also involved in the creation of digested food substances in the animal's body. In mammals, the last stage occurs in the ileum. So at this point, you're going to have food substances broken down to their simplest forms, for example, such as glucose, amino acids, and such. Now, once digestion is complete, what happens is that you're going to have these nutrients at a higher concentration within the ileum and at a lower concentration in the surrounding blood vessels. So what happens next? Diffusion. So the food substances are going to diffuse from the ileum across the thin membrane and into the blood vessels, where they will be transported to different parts of the body.